عقيدة إسرائيل ولكل حد شبات شلوم في كل مكان شبات شلوم على הארץ في كل מקום وأشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لا شما إسرائيل يهوه لا إلهנו يهوه אחד. Praise be to Yahweh Allah. So there's a couple of things that we want to talk about today. And we want to talk about the Arab Ummah. Okay? Who is Arab? And so what we have to understand is that the original Arabs still exist today. They are black. And then we have the modern Arabs. Okay? And both groups are trapped, hidden, misunderstood, because they are caught behind modern racial constructions. Modern racial constructions have caused indigenous people to completely lose their identity, okay? So what we have to understand is that when we look at prophecy, prophecy keys us into the facts that the house of Israel was amongst the Arabs and were considered Arabs and classified themselves as Arabs. We also understand that it's been written, okay, in Sirat al-Nabawiyah, that Arabs are those who descend from Abraham. So this doesn't just constitute Ishmaelites, but this also constitutes Israelites and all of the other seeds of Abraham, okay? So in studying that, we have to look at the Moorish kingdoms, okay? Moorish establishments in Europe, and also in Africa and the Middle East, the Umayyads, the Nasrids, the Abbasids, which we must understand are all part of one family and related to the house of Israel through the prophet Muhammad. So those of you who haven't watched the video, Muhammad and the Quraysh were Jews, I highly advise you to go back and watch that particular video because we're outlining some particular things that show the reality. Modern racial constructions have changed our identity, and we have people who are not connected to our bloodlines, who are not part of our ethnicity, telling our story and reclassifying us and reinterpreting our history, okay? And where does this leave us today? Lost. Many black people today, especially in the diaspora, don't have a grasp on who they are. They have no identity. And this is largely because they don't know the history of the Middle Ages. And they don't know the history of ancient Israel 1,400 years ago in the Arabian Peninsula. This is very, very important that we understand this. And we also understand that it was through the prophecies that were delivered by the house of Israel about the coming of the Messiah, or the Mahdi, and the fact that he would be from the house of Israel. Okay? And he's connected to the house of the Quraysh. And the Hadith tell us that he is an Israelite. Okay? So here we see that the knowledge of black Arabs, and many of these who have been considered and called Arabs have been erroneously styled as Ishmaelites, when we know for a fact there is no connection genealogically between Ishmael and Qahtan and Ishmael and Adnan. But we also know for a fact that both groups were Jewish, okay? And we know that by the prominent people who came forth from the group, namely Muhammad, and we have some others, okay, that have come forth from the Jaffanid line and several others. We've always been in the position of rulership, okay? And then this relates to our migrations into Africa, okay? Very important for us to understand. When we think about Arabs, we think about modern racial constructions, and people are getting ancient history and modern history all jacked up. Why? You don't understand ancient history. So when we recognize that Arab people were black and that the leadership of the Arabs is seated in the house of Israel, this makes the situation in Gaza and in Israel look totally different. This makes the fulfillment of prophecy look totally different. And this changes our worldview. This changes our understanding. This changes how we are perceiving the moment that we're living in right now. And it also helps us to understand why we are dealing with the type of hatred and anti-Semitism that we're dealing with. We're the only group that is not allowed to make aliyah on our own terms. We're the only group in the world that is not allowed to exercise self-determination, which we have an international right to. And this is largely because the house of Israel does not know who they are. You've been taught to hate everything Arab. You've been taught to hate everything that comes from Islam, but Torah practices Islam. And they get you to hate everything that's Arab so that you forfeit the accomplishments, scientific, theological, social, and otherwise, that you have contributed to the world like no other, the Renaissance period. So by getting you to deny your heritage and misunderstand your heritage, you forfeit your legacy. You forfeit your glory. And now these individuals who have nothing to do with the Arab Ummah, who have nothing to do with the house of Israel, they can open their mouths wide and blaspheme. But those of us who are from the house of Israel know very well who we are, and we know very well who we are related to, okay? The Arab Ummah is only one, and we came from Ibrahim. And we have many tribes, okay? But it's time for us to start understanding who we are and knowing who we are. We don't have to prove this to anybody. It's time for us to be. Learn how to be and stop trying to do. We do to show other people who we are. What they say and what they feel doesn't matter. We have a right to self-determination. And it is of paramount importance today that we know the full reality of our historical and our ethnic and religious and traditional heritage.